So today we're going to start balcony mix petunias. They're a dwarf variety. I've used this variety for many years, so my seed's going to be a mixture of my own saved seed and some fresh seed I think I bought last year. And they are tiny. And they do require light to germinate. Myself. And both of these seeds need to be started 12 weeks before the last freeze. Now, the petunias, from my experience, they need that time. I think the packet says 8 to 10 weeks, but I found they need more like 12. I want to give them plenty of time to get big and bushy. And I'm going to use a 10 by 10 extra sturdy bootstrap farmer tray, along with the 2-inch soil blocker. And I'm going to cover it with a dome, a greenhouse dome. This is an old Jiffy dome. It's from those Jiffy greenhouses you see in the store. They have those little flat pellets and you add water and they expand. Have you seen those before? That's what that's from. And then I have some new ones that I bought a few years ago, and it was really hard to find new ones that were cheap, but I think I have a link for that on Amazon. And I always cover all my seeds with domes. It helps hold in the moisture. Now let me show you the soil I'm going to use. I just opened it, so it's kind of awkward to pick it up. It's my absolute favorite brand, ProMix. And I either use the moisture control, which actually everything right now in the grow room is planted in that, but I'm out of it. And this year I decided to buy the organic. Yeah, it says garden, but it is a potting soil mix. I like that they come compacted. They're rectangular, they have a handle, and they stack well. They're easy to store. I bought them from Home Depot. So I like to put 25 soil blocks in this 10 by 10 tray. And it's a little bit tricky, but it can be done. Let me show you how. Now, the first 4 rows of 4, that's simple. That's easy. Really straightforward. So just take your time, and with experience, you'll learn the trick to it. Now, I like that one dome will fit over 2 10 by 10 trays. Because, the long trays are 10 by 20. But filling one tray up with the same type of seed is often just too many of one kind of plant for me. So first, we've got a tag, and we're going to start the petunias. There's one spot left here in the grow lights, and it's perfect because they're going to require this light to germinate. And look how tiny those seeds are. And most people just sprinkle them over the top of a tray, but I prefer to put them into individual soil blocks. Of course, I will have to thin them later. Now the petunias are going to germinate in about 7 to 15 days. Flowers. And they're both summer flowers, so they're going to go out 2 weeks after the last freeze, about mid-May, Mother's Day. Good morning and welcome back to Withrow Urban Homestead. Today it's time for a seedling update. It's really exciting. Now the petunias, they're still working on germination. They're slower. I think it's because these were my own saved seeds and not all of them were viable. I went ahead and sowed a few more seeds yesterday. The petunias and vinca were sown 14 days ago. Good morning and welcome back to Withrow Urban Homestead. Today we're going to pot up petunias. Now I've already prepared some 4-inch pots. And I'm using ProMix organic potting soil, the garden mix. I also like their moisture control. Now, I sowed these seeds thickly because petunia seeds are tiny. So we're going to divide some when it's possible. Now they didn't germinate well, so I had to sow them a second time. That's the reason there's a variety of sizes. Now these bigger seedlings, they were sown 5.5 weeks ago. The big ones, they germinated in 9 days. The first round of petunia seedlings are 4 weeks old. Now, the seeds do need light to germinate, and they were under a light, so that wasn't the issue. The issue was temperature. I sowed these at the end of January, and the furnace was running. And in February, normally the furnace runs constantly, and this room is warm. But this February, we didn't have our normal temperatures. We had a lot of warm days where the furnace didn't run at all. And petunias prefer a germination temperature, let me check my notes, of 75 to 80 degrees. So that means next year, I'm going to germinate them on a heat mat. I've never had to do that in the past, but that's going to be my practice from now on. They're going to grow inside under lights for 7 more weeks. I'm going to start bringing them outside a few hours every day and increase that time to get them used to the weather after our last freeze. And here in north central Maryland, that's beginning of May. Then we're going to plant them into our green stalk planter 2 to 4 weeks after our last freeze. Here, that's mid-May. Now we are going to pinch the middle. Let me show you one I've already done. I did that a few days ago, and that's going to cause it to branch out and give a fuller, bushier plant. If I don't do that, they'll get spindly and fall over. They'll be weak. But today I feel like I've stressed these enough, so I'm going to wait, and I'll pinch them back later. Now the soil was really dry because I had the pots on the furnace to keep the soil warm, and it dried it out. But the plants are so fragile, I'm going to go ahead and bottom water. I'll come back later and check, and if there's water left in the tray, I'll move the pots to a dry tray. I don't want them sitting in water. This room is full of new life. I absolutely love it. Good morning and welcome back to Withrow Urban Homestead. Today we're going to pinch back our petunias. Now, you can just use your fingers to pinch them back, but I'm going to use these embroidery scissors. And we want to cut out the center growth. And this is going to cause it to bush out, making a fuller plant. I went ahead and pinched one back 10 days ago. Now let me show you what happens if it hasn't been pinched back in the center. It grows tall and leggy, and it'll flop over. Now if you feel like that's a waste, you can trim off the lower leaves and dip this in rooting powder or put it in some water and grow a new plant. But honestly, this grow room is full. I don't have any more space. Now it's going to give you more flowers, make it more lush by cutting out the center. Now when you buy petunia plants, the greenhouse has already done this for you. Now I have a variety of sizes because I had to sow seeds a second time. The biggest ones are 6 weeks old and the smallest are 4. And I feel the in-between size at about 5 weeks, that's the right time to pinch them back. Now they were all potted up 10 days ago. I started these seedlings 7 weeks ago in 2-inch soil blocks. Now, most information I found about pruning petunias was about the plants, not the seedlings. That was hard information to find. And that's because most people buy them as plants. And that's why I went ahead and tested out on one of the seedlings before I made this video for you. Now, these are a summer flower. So they're going to continue to grow inside here in the basement under lights 5 to 6 more weeks. And we'll start hardening them off after our last frost. And I'll pinch them back several times before then. Now I'm going to plant these into our green stalk vertical garden 2 weeks after our last frost. Here, that's after Mother's Day, mid-May. Good morning and welcome back to Withrow Urban Homestead. We're past our last frost and it's time to start hardening off our summer petunias. These plants are 13 weeks old. They were potted up 9 weeks ago. I'm going to start hardening them off slowly, only staying out 2 hours today, then coming back into the kitchen under these lights. Then every day, increase the amount of time they stay outside. I'm going to start them hardening off in this protected area near the house. They'll get less wind, sun, and heat. Then every day I'll increase their amount of sun exposure, moving them closer and closer to getting full sun. Now I've pinched these back several times starting 6 weeks ago. I pinch these back because I don't want them to grow tall and spindly and flop over. I want them full and bushy. And in the beginning, I pinched them off right in the middle. You can't see that spot anymore. And then they branched out, and then I pinch off those branches. And most recently, it had lots of blossoms, and I wasn't ready for that. So I pinched those off. Make sure you start hardening them off after your last frost. They're going to harden off 7 to 10 days. Now, after I potted them up, about 4 weeks after, I fed them every 2 weeks with a liquid fertilizer. It's in the garage, but it's Fox Farm, my favorite. Here in the city, I have to protect them from digging squirrels and curious birds. The starlings, the babies are around, and in the front, they've pulled all the leaves off the tomato seedlings and the marigolds, and I don't want them doing that to the petunias here. So we're going to use this netting. Most of these are to be planted into our green stalk planters for our summer flowers. The spring flowers are still growing because we still have cold nights right now. Now these plants are a little bit stressed because they've really outgrew these 4-inch pots about 2 weeks ago. But I was out of soil and I was out of 6-inch pots, but I have some coming tomorrow and I'm going to pot these up. I'm not ready to plant them yet. I'm not ready to pull out those spring flowers. And any that we have left over, we'll put into the front porch pots. Good morning and welcome back to Withrow Urban Homestead. Today it's time to plant our summer flowers, petunias, into our green stalk planters. Now these plants, they're 15 weeks old and they've already hardened off for 2 weeks. For my green stalks, I have the most success with good size, full, bushy plants. Now, because I want big, full plants, I started these seeds early, and I started pinching them back 2 months ago. I did it several times, and I also potted them up twice. I just kept giving them more and more space to grow. Petunias, they prefer full sun. And here between our houses, it's only going to get 2 hours of sunlight every day. So these plants are going to be smaller and less bushy here on the side of the house. Now, as the flowers fade, you want to pinch them off. You want to deadhead them. This is going to encourage the plant to produce more blossoms. Because their work is to set seeds, and you don't want that to happen. And I see where I missed one. So I'm going to pinch off this seed head. Now also, if it gets too leggy, you can go ahead and pinch it back, and it'll branch out more. For the biggest possible plants with the most flowers, I've limited this to 1 plant per pocket. Now I am going to feed the petunias a liquid blooming fertilizer every 2 to 4 weeks, and I plan to use Fox Farm. All containers are going to have limited nutrition, and they're going to run out of nutrition for their flowers. So, especially since this is not new soil. Now, if you buy new potting soil with already having a slow release fertilizer, it's going to tell you how long that fertilizer will last. This is from a year or 2 ago, so I'm going to have to feed these myself. Greenstock does recommend that the soil goes all the way to the top of each tier. Don't have it down below and the plant sitting down. Bees love petunias. On my green stalks, I prefer to plant in a diagonal. So there's a petunia here, and then over one space, and over one pocket, and over one pocket. It makes it have a cascading look. I don't like where I plant the same thing in each pocket of the tier. I like this cascading effect. Now I do need to protect each pocket from digging squirrels. Now, petunias prefer for their soil to stay moist, so don't let them dry out. Now we're going to water them in well to get rid of any air pockets trapped around the roots, and then we're going to add some mulch. Good morning and welcome back to Withrow Urban Homestead. Today we're going to plant into our front porch pots balcony mix petunias. Now these plants are 15 weeks old and they've already hardened off for 2 weeks. I wanted big bushy plants, so I started pinching them back 2 months ago. And I've pinched them back several times. I've also potted them up twice. Now the spring flowers, the stock and the snapdragons, we planted those 6 weeks ago, but nesting birds in the area keep plucking off all the leaves. The snapdragons are just little bitty nubs, and the stock has fared a little bit better. But we're going to leave them in the pots and go ahead and add our summer flowers. Now, nighttime temperatures are still in the 50s and 60s, so these spring flowers do have a chance. Most of these pansies we planted in the fall, and some of them 6 weeks ago. And I've kept them going by making sure I deadhead the faded flowers. We're going to leave these again because the nights are still cool. Petunias are going to need deadheading too. It's going to keep them blooming all summer. Petunias love full sun, and they're going to do much better here in the front than on the side of the house. They're going to be bigger and bushier and full of more flowers. This is the warmest, sunniest location in my gardens. The petunias are also going to like these big, deep pots. This is the size that works best for me. Now this is not new soil, so it's already out of nutrition. And I'm going to have to feed these petunias every 2 to 4 weeks. And I plan to use Fox Farm Big Bloom, just following the directions. Just like the spring flowers, I need to protect these from digging squirrels. I have found that big plastic or resin pots hold in moisture best. So we're going to go ahead and water everything in and use some organic slug pellets. And last, we're going to add back the mulch. That'll help hold in the moisture too. You want some seeds? Yeah? This is a young squirrel born near the house. And there's 3 of them. And this one's the least scared of me. It's really cute. I just love the wildlife here in the heart of the city. Good morning and welcome back to Withrow Urban Homestead. We're growing balcony petunia mix in 4 different locations, so it's time for an update. Now this is the grandkids' garden, and that's the reason there's so many plants planted so close together. Now, both kids have 1 petunia plant each, but they've grown into the same space. Now, I do water this raised bed every day and feed it every 2 weeks. I also deadhead these petunias, but soon that's going to be really difficult because you really have to search down in there. I think they're looking really good. Now, both summer green stalk planters have the balcony petunias planted in them. This year it gets limited sun, only 2 hours a day, and that's the reason they're reaching up for the sun and growing more spindly. I also water these every day, and I feed them once a month. I also try to deadhead them every day. Now you want to deadhead more than just the petals at the top of the flower. You want to get the base where the seeds grow. Let me show you. Now, if you want them to keep flowering and be fuller, not letting develop seeds is the best. Now, originally, these two pots were planted on the ground, but they got so big you couldn't walk through here, so I had to put them up high. And soon, I'm either going to plant them in the back or the front gardens. It's difficult getting up there to water. But let me show you what to do if you miss deadheading a flower. Show you what the seed pod looks like. You can go ahead and remove it, or leave it to save your own seeds. Now, these are an old heirloom variety, and I've been saving my own petunia seeds for many years. All these petunias were grown from my own seeds. I tend to leave a few flowers to develop seeds in the front because these plants are bigger and they have more blossoms than the ones on the side. They also get full sun here. Petunias do prefer full sun. I water these pots once they dry out because they're so big, they don't require watering every day. Now, right now, we're in the middle of a heat wave, and they're requiring water about every other day. Now they're at their peak of the blossoms, and pretty soon it would help to prune them back. It'll make them bush out more, but wow, it's hard to do when there's so many flowers. It's just absolutely beautiful. Now let's walk over to the front and I can show you some petunias I didn't grow from seed, but a wonderful place to find free plants is the cemetery. And here, that's after Mother's Day. I found 2 pots of petunias that were basically dead. I planted them in the ground and they came back to life, and they're free. Oh, I also do feed these big pots once a month. Now, I did water them in May when I planted them out. I watered until they developed leaves and new flowers. But after that, I haven't watered these. I've just let nature take care of it. And it's not rained for a month, but they're still doing well. Now, it does have mulch, but I also don't feed these. I try to deadhead them, but there's so many blossoms, it's easy to miss some. And they were free. Thank you for visiting Withrow Urban Homestead. See you later. Bye-bye.